Welcome to the West Sports Show on the eve of the first test, and I'm talking you from the Hill area, which will be home to 500 patrons at a time sitting on beanbags in directors' chairs like we've been sitting on, and behind us, 22 yards of the most significant sporting real estate in the world at the moment. This is where it's all going to happen, and I'm going to be joined by Jackson Barrett to pull it all apart in a moment. Well, welcome to the West Sports Show, Ashes edition, and we're 2 days out, and I am joined by the West Australian's chief cricket writer, Jackson Barrett. How are you, Jacko?
Quarters. Hello, mate. On location. How good's this?
On location,
Perth Stadium.
Behind us, the most talked about 22 yards of grass-turf in the world at the moment.
I think that's fair to say. We learned a little bit more about it today from Isaac McDonald, and we can expect it to be pretty quick, I reckon.
Okay, so what did Isaac McDonald have to say? There's been a bit of narrative around the pitch, calls that it could be doctored in favour of a slower wicket, which is quite laughable, really, because if you look behind us, as green as they normally are a few days out, but this pitch is going to favour pace and bounce. Yeah,
there'll be a little bit of grass left on this. So at the moment, there are 9 mils on it. It tends to end up being between 8 and 10 mil for test matches here. So they're going to run some tests over the next couple of days and they'll settle on exactly the amount of grass. But you can be assured that it'll be quick and it'll be bouncy and it'll be pretty difficult for batters, I think. I mean, Isaac was on the podcast last week and he didn't blink at the fact that there were 17 wickets taken on day one last year because it ended up being a really honest cricket wicket. So he's hoping for something like that again, which I think will be really good. He laughed off suggestions from Michael Vaughan that maybe Australia should prepare a drier and slightly slower wicket that suits Nathan Lyon given their injuries to their pace stocks. He said there's not a directive on how to produce a wicket. There's never been a directive. That's not how
not
Q
in
rating
Australia,
works.
Anyway.
Certainly not in Australia yet. And that it's virtually impossible to produce a Bunsen burner like that out there anyway, given that the soil they use, given the conditions, you just can't make it that dry. It would take some time to make a wicket that dry and with the sand and some of those other properties. So, no, Isaac was really good. It's going to be pretty quick. It's going to be difficult for top order batters. I would suggest, though, that there will be runs in it like last year if you do the work and you're batting on days 2 and 3. So, I mean, last test was like a masterclass in curating, and I reckon this will be pretty similar. Yeah,
so 20 wickets actually fell by the morning 2 of the test match, and they had a bit of inclement weather in the lead-up, so they had to keep the covers off. It sweated underneath. There has been a bit of a forecast for some rain today, so I guess they're hoping for fine weather in the lead-up. Yeah. But if there is a bit of rain, that's okay too. I think it's been immaculately prepared, and there's going to be runs in it if you're prepared to be patient, I think, with this wicket.
Yeah, so they say they learnt from last year and they've started the prep a day early again, which is significant. There was forecast rain. We had a thunderstorm or a lightning, an electrical storm, funnily enough, earlier today, but we didn't get a lot of rain. It rained for maybe 10 or 15 minutes towards the end of Australia's session. The Lightning threw a spanner in the works today because Australia's session was actually delayed. So they did some fielding work and a warm-up in the outfield. Then they just moved out towards the nets where they were told that they had to come back in because of the threat of lightning. We couldn't see any from Perth Stadium here, but they were called inside for more than half an hour, and that's pushed back some of the proceedings here today. England are training as we speak, or about to train as we speak. So, that threw a bit of a spanner in the works, but I don't think it'll have any major effect on the deck itself because we haven't had that much rain.
And just before we went on air, there was some England doing some slips practice and some outfield practice there before they went into the nets. What did you glean from the nets session for Australia today?
Mitchell Starc was very impressive. So, clearly Australia are going to lean heavily on him in a bowling sense. He has been pretty close to full flight all of this week, and he was motoring today. You can tell with Mitchell Starc because he's very elegant. It's those long strides in the run-up, and for a big man, it's quite graceful when he's firing. When he is at full flight, he makes it look really easy, and he looked like that today. He was bowling fast. He challenged right-handers and left-handers. Him and Brendan Doggett, who was also very impressive, worked over Jake Weatherald in the nets today. It was a pretty willing session. Doggett gave Cam Green some grief in the nets as well. He hit the deck hard, bowls fast, really hurries guys up. So Starc and Doggett, really, really strong. Steve Smith batted for a long time, faced the wanger mostly from George Bailey and Mike Hussey. Worked pretty closely with Mike Hussey.
He loves working out, Steve Smith, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You've been described as disgraceful at times too, don't you?
I don't think I have.
You have, mate.
No, I can't imagine I have.
So So Boland and Doggett will come in. for Hazelwood and Cummins. What do we think now about the top order? Because it's still a conundrum. Do they open with Labuschagne or do what I think they should do, and that's Labuschagne at 3, Weatherald comes in to open. Let's go for a traditional 11. Yep. Let's not muck around with it.
That would be my side. So I think with the bowling, there are two schools of thought in that. Clearly, Australia doesn't have its first choice pace attack. It looks almost certain that Doggett will play. Nisa is here, but Doggett bowled alongside Stark today, and I'd suggest it's almost certainly him. Do you then add some bowling by playing the 2 all-rounders to try and strengthen that department, or do you try and strengthen the batting and score to win the test match? And I think that's probably the way Australia are leaning. There was a little hint in the slips cordon during fielding today, in that Cam Green fielded at gully with Bo Webster at 3rd slip, and that had some tongues wagging, certainly caught my eye, but Jake Weatherald was also doing some fielding training, and Marnus Labuschagne rolled in at 3rd slip as well. So I'd lean towards Weatherald. I think he looks good in the nets. He looks organised. He's clearly a guy that's worked out his game
debut
over.
at 31?
Yeah, and 31 for Doggett as well. So both long awaited. Doggett's been around squads before. Weatherald hasn't so much, but Weatherald was more of a prodigious run scorer as a youngster, then had to move states, went from South Australia to Tasmania, actually tried to leave Tasmania after 1 year but was held to a contract, and it worked out very well because I think the fact that he scores runs opening the batting at Bellerive, which is a difficult place to do it, has boosted his stocks dramatically. He's had 2 great Shield seasons, and it'll be a well-deserved debut.
Spoke to another Tasmanian, great this morning, Ricky Ponting, who will be doing the commentary for Channel 7 as part of the team for the 5 Test series.
Yep.
There'll be some stuff in the West Australian tomorrow on that, really interesting. But he says, with the injury to Hazelwood, you never know which way they're going to go, he said. But in his heart of hearts, Labuschagne, when he's in form, and he has been in form, is his pick at number 3. And, of course, he'd love to see Weatherald open for Australia. Look, it's going to be interesting. I think that's the way they go, but you just never know, do you? What did... there was some press conferences today, so what did you gain out of that?
Yeah, so we heard from Stark today, who was... excellent in the nets and looms as a really important factor given the injuries to the other big 3. He's kind of the last man standing now. He joked that makes him feel a little bit old, and he's hearing a lot of people telling him that he's quite old. He's clearly the more experienced member of that attack now, and while he played it down, he's going to take on a pretty significant role in leading that attack, but also being the weapon with the ball. He'll take the new ball every time it comes. He'll be the guy that is called on to try and take the key wicket. So he's got a really important role. So he was interesting. He was full of praise for Doggett as well. Talked about how he's grown over the last couple of years and how he's moved to South Australia from Queensland, helped him become a more well-rounded cricketer and that sort of thing. So he was good, but he was pretty coy on things like the deck, said that he doesn't pretend to know how to read a cricket wicket, which is really pretty hard. It's one of those things where everyone thinks they're an expert, and I think sometimes the players like to avoid committing to anything. Joked that he misses the Wacker ground. I mean, we're sitting in a beautiful stadium that'll be full for 3 days. So, but he joked that he did like the Freo doctor giving him some relief in the afternoon. So yeah, there was a bit to take out of Stark. We also heard from Gus Atkinson. There was a little clip in the Stark press conference where he was asked about the England side, and he said, we've heard a lot about their 4 or 5 guys that can bowl quick, and the fact that they've developed a stable of guys that can bowl quick to come out and challenge Australia in these conditions. But he did say none of them have played, or not many of them have played here before, like Jofra Archer, I think, has, and Mark Wood as well. But
no one's played at Optus in a test from the England team. It's the first
correct.
test.
And Carson Atkinson and Josh Tongue are pretty new to the side. So Atkinson defended that. He reckons that the inexperience is a good thing. There are no scars there. He was even asked about, he's playing the first test in Perth rather than Brisbane, a good thing given historically England haven't fared particularly well first up at the Gabba. And he just said that they're, they're having a fresh look at it, really. I mean, none of these guys, except Root and Stokes, have played any significant cricket here, and he sees that as a benefit to them. So that were kind of the big lines out of the presses.
Check this out. A shipment of Bowers and Wilkins PX7 S2E headphones has just landed in Australia, exclusive to West Coast Hi-Fi and on sale for just $429 during their booming Black Friday sale. They come packed with features including noise cancelling and extended listening with 30 hours from a single charge. Hurry in and feel the experience during the West Coast Hi-Fi booming Black Friday sale. Ends November 29. That England pace attack, so Wood rolled the arm over yesterday and today and looked particularly good yesterday in the nets, but hasn't played a first-class match since February.
Yeah.
Archer's played 2 tests in 4 years or something. So it's a bit of they're not going to play the 5-test series. So, but I think the expectation is they're both going to play in this test. The interesting thing will be what they do in terms of around them. So Ben Stokes was probably their best bowler against India and looked super in the nets yesterday. Do they roll in a Bashir spinner? Now, the reason I raised that is, again, speaking to Ricky Ponting this morning, he says he's got a lot of similarities to Nathan Lyon, who's got a really good record in Perth, in that he's tall and he's taller than Lyon, but he overspins. So you get a lot of bounce here. So he thinks he would pick him if he was an England selector.
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a trap over the last few years, teams coming and loading up on pace for a deck like this. If it were me, I would probably play Bashir, but I think England are leaning towards the 4 quicks and Ben Stokes. So, I mean, Bashir didn't play for the first team, he played for the Lions in their hit out at Lilac Hill last week, which is an interesting wrinkle, and I just don't think you set a team up like that for a practice match if it's not something that you're looking at doing here. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is Archer, Wood, Cass, Atkinson and some support from Stokes. Given you've got that help from Stokes, I'd probably play Bashir because Nathan Lyon has a record here, as Ricky pointed out, and I mean spin at the Wacker, which is a very similar wicket, has been hugely successful too over the last couple of years. So I think it may be a bit of a trap. They've also got Will Jacks there as an option. Like he could come in and bat 8 and spin the ball. I'm intrigued by that. I think the wrinkle there as well is Archer hasn't had a lot of prep, so we've barely seen him bowl. He bowled, what was it, 5?
Limited overs at Lilac Hill.
Yeah, was limited at Lilac Hill. We're waiting to see if he bowls this afternoon, that being Wednesday. He was batting in the nets before we went on air, so we'll have more on that in the paper tomorrow and online. But yeah, that would be my worry, that for an injury-prone guy, they say that he's someone that can get up off limited prep, but it has been very limited.
The million-dollar question, will Joe Root make a century in Australia on this tour? 9 half-centuries to his credit in test matches here in Australia. It's a blight on his career, says Ricky Ponting. As good as he is, and of course he passed Ricky Ponting this year to become the second highest test run aggregate scorer. He's no one doubts he's one of the greats, Joe Root. But I do think he needs to tick this off on his resume. Do you not?
Yeah, I agree. The best players perform in the big series, and you think about guys that have won respect in Australia even over the last 20 years. It's guys like Kohli, it's guys like begrudgingly probably a Kevin Peterson, guys like Alistair Cook who made runs here, AB de Villiers made runs here, and it's just not something Root's done. I think he probably does do it though.
So do I. I've got a feeling.
Yeah, I've just got a feeling. I mean,
I got a feeling it happens right here behind us.
Yeah, I think it might too, because I think the deck in between days 2 and 3.5 were really good last year, and I think it'll be a pretty similar wicket. Jaiswal and Kohli both made hundreds out here, and it was a similar situation with Kohli, wasn't it? There was that huge level of anticipation about will he make runs here, and he did, and then ironically played 4 more tests and did very little and was done. I don't think that'll be the case with Root.
I was lucky enough to be here when he scored that ton last year, and it was something I'll remember always.
Yeah, it was one of the great atmospheres at Perth Stadium, and we've been here for amazing football matches and prelim finals and all sorts, but that was one of the great afternoons, and I think it'll be similar. I think Root's a big sniff to make runs here. Bazball's
it going to work? Now, England talk it down, saying we don't mention it at home.
Yeah.
I'm told absolutely they do. They talk about it a lot, and that everything they've done in the last 3 years under Brendan McCullum, starting with that test against Pakistan when they got off to that great start, I think everything is geared towards this summer and Bazball. So they're going to have a red-hot crack. It's all about aggressive cricket.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it's limited to the batting either. Like the pace stocks that we talked about before have been groomed for this series over a period of time. So the batting will be the same. They'll get after bowling. I think they've refined it over the last few years, but it's certainly the way that they go about their cricket is fairly ingrained now. I think it's been played with a little bit and tweaked, and maybe it's not quite as outrageous. It feels like it's regressed to a little bit closer to a bit above the mean. But yeah, they're going to try and take the attack to Australia and get after them.
A lot of talk, obviously, about England's lead-in. The traditionalists say it's just not good enough. One game at Lilac Hill, flat deck, nothing like you're going to get here. However, it's also argued that this is cricket these days. You don't get the opportunity to play against other states. And countries don't roll out their best second 11s for you either. They're just not going to try and help you in any way.
All their best wickets.
And the other argument is that England, it's a 5-test series. They come in, they're not stupid. They're not going to play under anyone who is vulnerable, although there is question marks over Wood and Archer being able to last. But there is also an argument that you want to be as fresh in this back half of the series as you are in the front half.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I just think the landscape is at a point now, and the calendar, it is a point where England can't come out here for 3 months and play WA and the bloody Country 11 and Albany Districts.
Which is what they used to do.
Yeah, it just can't happen anymore. They played white ball games in New Zealand like a bit over a week ago. And I think players are getting to a point now where they feel as if they can prepare for a test series in white ball cricket. I mean, a lot of the Australian players did it. The selectors view it that way. I mean, to use an example, George Bailey was adamant that they would pick Mitch Marsh on merit if he was performing in white ball cricket. And I think players are pretty confident that they can prepare that way now. Obviously, Archer and Wood are the exception. Well, there are a few exceptions, but they're the kind of big names that didn't play in that series. But they can do that now. Like, they've been playing cricket. They've been playing cricket all year. And they'd just be cooked if they came and played 3 tour matches. Admittedly, playing against yourself on a deck that does not mimic this whatsoever is tricky, but it's not like Australia aren't here to make it easy for them. Like, Australia were never going to put up Australia A to play England a week out from the Ashes, and it was never going to be here or be at the Wacker, or it was always going to clash with Shield cricket at the Wacker, and that's just one of the quirks of touring.
We mentioned Bazball before. One of the players I'm really looking forward to see is the England wicketkeeper batsman who replaced Johnny Bairstow, who was the villain of the last series in 2023, of course, with that Carey stumping. But Jamie Smith, big hype about him. 2 centuries in 15 tests. He is a very aggressive batsman, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him play.
Yeah, I think the trend at the moment is everyone does these like combined 11s. Like, who would you have in the keeping spot? And the answer is almost always Carey, and it's just about the quickest answer that people give.
Yep.
But I think by the end of this, and I agree at the moment, but by the end of this series, I think Smith could have had a real impact. He gets after it. He lengthens their batting significantly. Not that Bairstow couldn't bat, obviously, but he really offers them something a little bit different, deeper into that middle order, and he's got good gloves. So I think there's massive hype on him in the UK, but I don't think there is a hell of a lot here. And I think he's one of those players that Australians are probably just resting on a little bit, not the players, the public. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him go about it as part of a middle order that has Harry Brook in it, who can go, and Ben Stokes in it, and we know all about what he can do. So that's a nice little unit in there now.
Jackson, you can't wait to get your Friday's edition of the West, because this will be in it. The Ashes Lift Out. It's got everything you want in here. 56 pages. Exclusive access to the game's biggest names: Justin Langer, David Lloyd, Mitchell Johnson and Gideon Hay. There's even a Barmy Army songbook in there. Do you reckon there'll be any new villain for the Barmy Army by the end of the series?
Well, they say they're not going after Alex Carey. I'd love to know how long that promise. I'd love to know how long that promise lasts for. I don't know. I feel like someone like a Travis Head is one that could get under their skin a little bit, and I think they will probably fall in love with a couple of guys as well in the England side. I think Smith is one of them.
Yep.
Harry Brook as well. They're going to play. I'm really looking forward to seeing them here. They've been given Bay 13 at the MCG, which is controversial. Barmy Army
have spent many a day in Bay 13 at the MCG. I saw a live cat thrown at the MCG in Bay 13 once. A live cat during a Mexican wave.
How would you go about getting it in?
I don't know. Small bag, I suppose, but that was before they banned bottles and they were throwing them all in the air during the Mexican wave. And I heard, "Meow," and I turned around. There was a live cat being thrown.
I don't know about cats this time around, but there'll
be no cats in here. I can tell you. This is not the Coliseum.
Tight security. they'll make some noise and they'll be really good fun. It's the first time we've seen them properly in Perth, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Jackson, been great. Thanks for your time. And
thanks, mate.
Bring on the first test.
Should we do the podcast here all the time?
Yeah, let's do it. Cricket tipping is back with the game, and there's cash to be won just for signing up. Join by November 23 to enter the draw to win $5,000 thanks to Thirsty Camel. Follow the link in the episode description or go to thegame.com.au to sign up today.